This is Bumping Into, where we have interesting conversations with people from all walks of life.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Bumping Into. I'm your host Francis Populin, and today we have an exceptional guest joining us, a man who has seamlessly woven success stories in both the business world and the music industry. Get ready to be inspired as we uncover the remarkable journey of none other than David Lowy. The Lowy name is synonymous with innovation, hard work and passion. David's father was the founder of shopping centre giant Westfield. Frank Lowy pioneered groundbreaking concepts that revolutionised the way we experience shopping centres and took the Westfield name global. David was there from the first deli in Sydney and spent years working his way up through the ranks of the Westfield business alongside his father as managing director. David's interests and experiences are as far-reaching as the Westfield business. He has built a name for himself in the aviation space, runs a private investment fund, and as an international rock star. He's the driving force behind the iconic rock band the Dead Daisies, who are just about to release their best-of album to celebrate 10 years of rock and roll. In today's episode, we'll dive into the many narratives of David Lowy's life and his family story. So whether you're here for the business side or a music enthusiast, prepare to be captivated by the incredible journey of David Lowy and the story of the Dead Daisies. Hey, David, how you going?
Hi. Good. How you going?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, mate. Thank you very much for offering the time.
No problem. Haven't heard that accent for a while other than myself.
Was it not too many of us over there?
No, not too many.
Well, what I wanted to do, if you're up for it, is I wanted to sort of start, go back to your growing up with into the Westfield years, that sort of the life that you lived, and then work our way into the music side with the Dead Daisies.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
If you're up for
Happy to do that. Yeah.
What I came across a podcast that had your dad was a guest, and he spoke about yourself on there, and he was talking about the early days of when he had the deli in Sydney and he had the coffee shop, and he mentioned yourself, and he said that that you were a little kid and that you used to get dropped off to your grandparents' place, I think it was. So
my grandmother,
that puts you in quite a unique position because you've seen the origin story. You've been part of it as a little kid, seeing this.
I lived it.
Yeah. And then to think of from a deli and a coffee shop to the Westfield shopping centres. I mean, it's one thing to go to little arcade shopping centres, which is an achievement in itself, but then to his monsters. Did you ever think as a kid, could you ever have foreseen where that was heading?
No, I mean, I didn't think about it that way. My father was very ambitious and very smart and incredibly hardworking. And I guess that's what I've seen since I was a little boy. I used to go with him. I used to go to the deli, I remember, on the train out to Blacktown. And then I recall going to building sites with him once he started started building small shopping centres and doing land subdivisions. I went with him every week. He worked 7 days a week. And I went with him on the weekends to building sites since I'm 5 years old. So, I've grown up. I've grown up in that environment, and it's been a phenomenal success story he's had. And then, he came from very difficult circumstances and was very being a Holocaust survivor, and he's very driven. And Australia was an unbelievable land of opportunity, and such. We're so grateful to Australia because my father came there as a penniless not refugee, but immigrant. He'd already gone from Europe. The Holocaust, he was interned by the British in Cyprus on his way to what was then Palestine. Then he fought in the War of Independence for the State of Israel, and then so he was in another war already. Then in 1952, he came to Australia because it's a very long story, but his mother and siblings managed to go from Europe to Australia because his sister married somebody that had a relative in Australia. So he went to be reunited with his mother and his siblings. And I never forget, my dad tells me this story. He arrived, he could hardly speak English, and he had a job as a storeman and packer somewhere. And And he says, what he was friendly with the guys he was working with, and they said to him, "Mate, don't worry, she'll be right. You're in the right place.
Well,
You'll be right in this country." Some words like that, and he was, and then he had this phenomenal success early on, and through incredible hard work. But anybody who's also very successful and doesn't admit they're lucky is fooling themselves also. So you have to be you have to be smart, you have to work very hard, but you also have to be very lucky. And he had those three. And then myself, I'm the eldest of my brothers. I'm 8 years older than my youngest, 4 years older than my middle brother, and it was a natural thing for us to go and work in the business with him. I never really thought about much else, even though growing up, I learned piano as a child. My mother played piano, and I had a little garage band in my mid-teen years, and I actually played bass guitar. So I had a love of music, and at the same time, I always wanted to be a pilot. So I grew up with these things, but knowing that it was just a natural thing for me to do, to go into the business. Of course, I had to earn my way there. I had to go to university. I needed to get a university degree. I couldn't just go in. And I worked there in my school holidays as a teenager. I did in the early malls that we'd built in the 60s. My first job in the summer holidays was in Burwood, Westfield, Burwood. I cleaned the toilets. Okay, so my father started me at the bottom. So we've all been brought up with a very solid work ethic, and it stood us in good stead. Of course, as I said, we were very lucky. We're in the right place and at the right time. So all I've seen is ambition, hard work, and a dose of luck.
It's obviously by him making you start at the bottom that creates the blueprint for everything onwards, because it's obviously when you see those generational curses where they get everything handed to them and then they turn it into a mess when they take the reins over, is that they never had to see the struggle. If you understand how the building's built, you'll understand how to run it and fund it and look after it.
Yeah. Having said that, each generation has its struggles. You've got the entrepreneur founder who has special qualities, and then you've got the second generation who's got to try and live up to it as best they can. One day we do our best, but my dad's an unbelievable entrepreneur, and he's taught myself and my brothers a thing or two along the way, and we've got kids and grandkids, myself and my brothers, so we it's a challenge for us too. So.
And are they all involved with your other activities as well?
No. I have one son works with me. One son has his own business. My daughter's just finished law school here in New York. So they're doing their own thing, and my brother's kids do their own thing as well. It's not we don't have ambition for this grand, thing. We each do our own thing with our own families. It's not a dynasty, it's nothing like that. We don't see it like that. We've got obligations, but.
When you were in there as a team back in the Westfield days, did you have that thing where you each played to your strengths, or was there a lot of argy-bargy between the group, the family group, or was it a thing of, well, I know you're best dealing with people, you deal with that. I know you're best dealing with the law side. Did you each have your own area that you're stuck in your own corners?
More or less, we more or less had that. We're lucky in a way because our intellects are very similar. We're each as unsmart as each other, so we're each as dumb as each other. So our intellects are the same, but our personalities are different, and our strengths and weaknesses are different. So I guess the combination of everything worked for us. And it's not without its challenges, It's not to say we didn't have disagreements and difference of opinion, but in the end we work it out. We have to work it out. One for all and all for one. But it's a challenge for all of us, and it's worked out. It's worked out well for us.
In 2018, that was when you sold the Westfield part of it
Yeah.
off. Was that
Yeah.
from an emotional point of view? I mean, that's a huge part of your life. You saw it grow from the little bean.
Yeah.
Is there any emotional ties at that level? I would sort of think that even when a plumber retires or sells his 1-2-man business, he's giving away something of himself and calling that ends. Something that you were that involved with, that many days working on per week.
Yeah.
Was there any emotional bit?
Well, for myself, I actually left Westfield in 2000. I worked there as my teenage years in school, and finished university. I went to work. I didn't have a gap year, and I finished my last university exam on a Friday. I went to work Monday. So, and so I worked there I started at the end of 76. I finished university, and I left it as an executive at the beginning of 2000. So I worked for 23, 24 years there. And fortunately, I was able to, I wanted to do something different. I really did. I'd done that for 25 odd years, 26 years. And I wanted to do something different. And fortunately, whatever I could do, my brothers could do equal or better than me. And my dad, fortunately for me, had no desire to retire. So I was able to leave the business. It was a big public company, and I really wanted to be in a private business, which would then give me time to do things like music and aviation. And fortunately, my family was, my father and my brothers were comfortable to let me do that. And we did sell a small part of our shareholding in the company just before then, and I then took those funds and created an investment business as a partnership for myself for the four of us, for my father and my brothers and myself. Right. So since 2000, I didn't work as an executive at Westfield. So when it ultimately got sold, it was harder for my brothers and my dad.
Yeah.
But everything has a time, and my father actually hasn't looked. He thought it would be a big emotional wrenching for him, but it's not. It's not. And we've moved on. He's moved on, and it had its time. It served its purpose for him, and it was an unbelievable success story. And he, when we sold in 2018, he was 88, and he'd done it. I wasn't there anymore, working as an executive. And my brothers also were keen. Okay, let's move on to the next chapter. So, but yeah, it was emotional in one way. And then the day after we did it, everybody was okay. It's also, running a big public company. It's a huge responsibility.
Oh,
huge.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, the pressure.
You've got a lot of employees. You've got shareholders. You've got a lot of stakeholders. You've got the government.
Yeah.
you've got the local communities, each of the shopping centres in, and you've got to do your best for everybody. You've got to do well for yourself, but your employees have to do well. Your customers, the retailers have to do well, and you want to be a good corporate citizen. And there's a lot of pressure in all that, and everybody had done it for a long time, and I guess for us, things have their time.
Yeah.
And for us, 2018, it was time.
Wow, I guess that's good. It was it sounds like it felt like a natural progression rather than anything else.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't natural. It was a natural progression. We'd had thought about it before a few times, but it wasn't time. Obviously, otherwise it would have happened.
Yeah. So once you were freed up, then into the private space, and obviously that when you could then start doing these other projects that are more aligned with your passion and passions as such. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, for two reasons. One, I worked only as myself, my brothers, and my dad. I didn't have anybody else to account for. And the type of business that I'm in, the investment business, it's something that you can do. It's intense, but you don't have customers and clients
Yeah, the phone's not ringing
and
with problems of the day-to-day
yeah,
runnings.
I've got a very small team,
Yeah.
and the vast majority of their time and intellect is focused on making the investments rather than dealing with all the other things that you do in running an operating business. So that gave me the freedom and time. My time was my own, so if I wanted to do a band rehearsal in the afternoon, I could, or I didn't. I just get up early in the morning and do my work. I didn't have to go to an office.
Yeah.
I didn't have the rigidity of an eight to six job, or whatever. So I was able to blend in my responsibilities in the investment business together with the things I really wanted to do in life. So I guess you can say I lived my life in reverse. I did a lot of the things people do early, and then they go on to. I did my business career first, and then that enabled me to do other things.
Which is probably the more sustainable way, because you've sort of laid a blueprint and a base that has allowed you to do that in the way you want.
Yeah, I guess so. It's it just sort of, the best things just happen. A lot of people think a lot of things are planned, but men plan and God laughs.
Is it with the music side of it? Are your brothers into music at all, or were you that? No, so they were like, we just don't get it, because a lot of people are like that.
No, my mother, and myself. My mother was a very good pianist, and she got me music lessons at a young age. And I used to listen to classical music with children's stories.
Oh,
they were 78s.
Wow.
78 RPM records I used to listen to. And so I always had a thing for music, and I had a good ear. I got a reasonable musical ear, and I learned the basics of music at a young age. But I did always want to be in a rock and roll band, and I had a go at it as a teenager in a garage band, but we weren't very good. And I was actually playing bass guitar at the time, and then I just stopped. And then one day, it was late 1999. I was walking through the city of Sydney, and I walked past a music shop, and I don't know what happened, but I saw a guitar caught my eye in the window of the shop. And I remember as a kid, I used to go to school in the city, and there was a music store called Harry Landis in Park Street. And he always had the guitars outside on the street. And I'd get the bus every day outside this music store in Park Street. And I so wanted one of those guitars. And I couldn't have one. My father wouldn't buy me one, or we couldn't afford it or something. I didn't grow up like I am today.
Yeah.
We started. So, and then I'm walking past this guitar shop in the city. That shop's long closed, but I thought, well, geez, I can just go in and buy it now. And I went in, put my credit card down, bought a guitar, took it home. And I remembered a few things from playing, and I got one of those books. And there wasn't YouTube in those days how to play guitar. Maybe there was, but I didn't know. And just started teaching myself. And I got an opportunity on the millennium, on turn of the century. New Year's Eve is actually my birthday, and so I had a party for my birthday in the turn of the century, and I found this cover band to come and play, and I thought, well, geez, I asked the guy whose band it was, can I play a couple of songs with you? He said, well, can you play? I said, look, I'm just sort of starting out, but give me your song list. And they gave me the list, and I picked 4 or 5 songs that I figured I could do. At the time, I could only do downstrokes. So, but they said, well, do a rehearsal with us and see how you go. So I learnt those songs very diligently, and I did a rehearsal with them. They said, okay, it's your party. It doesn't sound too bad. You won't embarrass yourself too much. Give it a go. So I played, and I said, well, this is really good. I am going to do this. I really really enjoy it. And that's how I got started. And then I had my own cover band. And through a series of circumstances, we played at a big charity gig called Corporate Countdown, which was a remake of the television show Countdown.
Oh,
It used to be on the ABC.
Yeah.
And you entered your band in it, and it was a big charity affair. And they gave each one of the entrants who were amateur players, typically people in large companies, a local rock star to work with, and who would play or sing with you. And I got Doc Neeson.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I met Doc. And him and I struck up a friendship, and we played a couple of Angels. We covered a couple of Angels songs in the cover band. He said, "Would you like me to come and sing with you one night?" Because the Angels had broken up at the time. I couldn't believe it. I said, "Sure, please." So he came. We did a gig actually. Oh, I forget the name of the hotel. A hotel in the city somewhere. Forget the name of it. At a pub. And then Doc and I got to talking, and he said, "Do you think you could write songs?" I said, "I don't know. Never done it." But he said, "Well, let's get together and try." So we did. And from that, out of that came the band Red Phoenix.
Wow.
At first, it was called Doc Neeson's Angels because Doc had split with the other guys.
Yep.
And it was Jim Hilburn and him. And then myself and another guitarist, Peter Northcote. And Doc wanted to go out as Doc Neeson's Angels. He couldn't use the name The Angels. I think the Brewster brothers owned it or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And so we went out and played as Doc Neeson's Angels, which was a real blast for me. I couldn't believe it. I'm standing on stage playing with Doc. And from that grew out the project Red Phoenix. And we did an album. I'm very proud of that album. I co-wrote a number of the songs on that album. And then unfortunately Doc wasn't well, and we started to tour the album, and he just wasn't up for it. He just couldn't do it anymore. He wasn't a well man. And so really that project it folded in a way. And I was looking to do something else, and I met David Edwards, who's the manager of the Dead Daisies, and David had just finished managing In Excess. He managed In Excess.
Oh, okay.
And he did the TV show Rockstar In Excess to find a new singer.
I remember that. Yep.
He said, "Look, if you want to do something new, I mean, there's 10 people that were runners up, and they're all really good, and maybe you should meet a couple of them and see if something gels and try and start a band with them." So I did that. I met a couple of people, and then I had quite a good rapport with Neil Carlson, who was one of the runners up, and we started a band called Mink, and we did an album, and we actually toured in America, toured in Canada, and then Neil wanted to start having a family, and the normal things that happen in bands.
Yeah.
Also, it was around the time of the financial crisis in 2008, and I got very busy at work. Things were, in the investment business at that time, it was very complex and difficult, and I couldn't pay attention to the music anyway.
Yeah.
So I stopped music for about 3 years, and then in 2012, David Edwards said, "Well, why don't you talk to John Stevens? He's looking to do something. You're looking to do something." I met with John, and he said, "Well, let's try and write together." And we went away for 5 days, and we wrote 30 songs. We really gelled well together. And he said, "Well, okay, we've got some songs. Let's do an album." Great. How do we do that? Where are we going to? So I've got a friend in LA, very good producer, works very fast. We'll go there and we'll spend 10 days and we'll do the album. I said, "Can you do it? Can we do it in 10 days?" He said, "Yeah." And that's exactly what we did. And then we came back from doing that. And then late 2012, we started to put a band together I also played with John in his solo thing. He did a lot of solo gigs.
Yeah.
I played in some of those gigs with him, and we played some of the songs the early Dead Daisies songs that him and I wrote together. And then we came to America and started touring, and we toured in Europe as well, and in the US, and then John and I split. He wanted to do different things. I wanted to do different things, and we're good friends. And I count him as a friend. Very proud of. I learned a hell of a lot from him, and about songwriting and performing and things like that. And still count him as a friend. And then John Corabi joined the band. It really take me hours and hours to tell you the whole story, but that's really the genesis of it. And then John wanted to go and do his solo thing, and then Glenn Hughes. I bumped into Glenn Hughes somewhere. Okay, we did a couple of albums with Glenn, and Glenn now's off doing his own thing again, and John is happy to rejoin us. So that's where we are. I mean, that's a very shortcut way. It's been 10 years, quite a journey.
Yeah, and like, even if you look at the caliber of what you guys put out, it's so first rate and professional. You know, it's an incredible sound that you guys have. It's you can really tell it's working with masters of their craft. That's the way it comes across. Yeah.
Well, I believe in standing on the shoulders of giants. That's what I want to do.
Well, it's
I always surround myself with the best people I can find, and that they lift me up. They're better than me at it, and so I'm going to learn from them, and that's exactly what's happened.
And it's it seems like you've got these guys where they're at a point in their lives where there's all of the difficulties and the challenges that come with young musicians and bands starting up and the infight. That's all gone. And these guys are just here to play, be creative, have a good time, and do what they do best. And that's how that comes across to me, is what the Dead Daisies are.
Look, there is a downside to it, in that people are used to doing their own thing. And so they don't want to just do the one thing. And also, my time is a little bit limited because of the other things I need to do. So everybody's time's got to align during the year, and it hasn't always happened. And that's why we've had changes of band members. And also, if guys have had solo careers, they sometimes want to go back to it. Yeah. John Corabi did in 2018. He said, I want to go and do my solo thing again. And Glenn was with us for 3 years. We had 2 albums. He was keen to do his solo thing. So, and then, we originally had Richard Fortus playing guitar from Guns N' Roses. And I always knew Richard was going to go back to Guns N' Roses, and I hung on to him as long as I could. And then, the opportunity rejoined with Axl. And, I never want to hold anybody back either. And it was Richard's career. So he went and joined them, and Richard introduced me to Doug, who was just finishing up with Whitesnake. So the plus side of it is that you don't have all those things you have in a young band. Yeah. The negative of it is it's very hard to keep the same group of people together, which is not easy for the fans sometimes. But it's not a perfect world.
No, but I do think, and I know exactly what you mean, because to me, I look at it as this world of opportunity. Someone else comes in, brings something in, and you don't know what you're going to get, and then that morphs into something else. There's always this evolving creativity and uniqueness and openness and freeness that exists on that platform. But then I do see what you mean, that certain fan members are like, oh, I only want this. I'm expecting to hear this. But what I do think you guys have done, and it's something that I think a lot of bands miss out on, is you've managed to keep the essence. It's like when someone turns up, they understand the job, and the job is the sound and the performance. And it's like, I've got it. I get it. I'm one of you. Let's just add my own contribution, which is so unique. It's such a unique
It's good.
thing.
No, it's a good vibe. I mean, it's not without disagreements from time to time, but it's a good vibe, and I like to work in a collaborative way. There's no dictatorial things. It's a collaborative effort, and I think that brings out the best. That's what works for me anyway, to collaborate with other people. And I think what we've got is the essence of a mixture of Aussie rock and British
Yes.
rock and American rock, and
Yep.
it's familiar. It's familiar to people. I think there is, it's not something that you haven't heard before out of the box. There's a familiarity to it. It's new. It's new classic rock, and that's exactly what we set out to do, and that's who we are in any case. So.
It reminds me, it's a similar sound and similar level of certain bands just get this. And I think it's, again, coming back to the masters of their craft that get it. Because Billy Thorpe used to always go on about anyone can be loud, but it's understanding sound dynamics that make you sound good. And it's little things like that I think really bring it together. And the only other band that does what you said, which is a new version of classic rock, is Electric Mary here in Australia.
Yeah.
And they get it. They've just got this enormous bottom end bellowing sound, and it's all the best bits from the past, but taking it with the new dynamics of the modern world.
Yeah.
And you get magic, like yourselves. It's absolute magic for a person that's into that style of music. There's nothing else better.
Yeah. No, that's good.
But
and we've had some moderate success, globally, and played it. We can play to 1,500 people in Germany, in most cities in Germany, 1,000 odd people in most of the UK and Europe, and America's harder. The rock scene in America's harder than
really
Our fan base is bigger. Is really. We've got a lot of fans here too, but in Europe we draw bigger crowds in Europe.
Wow, yeah, a lot of bands, especially Australian ones, that tend to make it over in Europe, and over here they'll do their 200, 300, 400 room.
That's right.
Over in Europe, they get a following, and they just absolutely love it. And it's people assume that America has that thing because of the huge population, but
it's not. It's rock is not big here. I mean, if you want to play country or hip hop, it's okay, but rock is not.
Because that I was going to say, the comparison of Australia versus America, but obviously we're both in that where we all look to Europe for that style, if that's where you want to make it. And so now you've got the greatest hits that you're going to essentially be releasing this year. Yeah. Which is, a huge achievement, but obviously picking only a handful of songs when you've got this enormous collection and such passionate people behind every song is, was it a challenge to narrow the field in?
Yeah, look, it's not easy to do that. But, we've got the management of the band, which I take no part in, by the way. I just play guitar. They figure out what people have liked, what gets played the most on the streaming platforms, and what people want to hear. It's a combination of what we want artistically and what they think people want to hear and will buy or stream. So we've had 6 original albums. I think probably 60 original songs. We got a couple of covers on some of the albums, but 60 original songs. So we chose 10 of them. So and I think we put Fortunate Son on there, which is obviously a cover.
And any plans to come home and do a round through the capital cities?
I'd like to. Yeah, it's just trying to make it all fit together. Is the hard thing. Trying to get the time right, and the time right to play in Australia, the time right to play in those cities, combined with another tour that we might be doing. We are going to Japan this year. We thought maybe we could go from Japan to Australia, but we got booked in Europe straight after Japan. So
you're going back the other way. Yeah.
Well, that's what the promoter. Look, you can try and make all these decisions yourself, but the promoters run the market, and fans and promoters, and so in a way, you're not master of your destiny. And I was hoping we could get to Australia after going to Japan, which is end of October, early November, but it hasn't. This year, it hasn't worked out that well. We'll try.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people hanging out. Definitely be a lot of people hanging out. So Well, thanks, David. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate you making the time of your evening to come on.
Sure, for sure.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, David. Thanks, mate. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for making it through to the end of the show. If you wanted to find out more about this episode, head to bumpinginto.com.au. Don't forget the .au. And find the episode page. There'll be some links and some more info about the guest and all of the topics and items that we spoke about. Feel free to have a look around and check out any other episodes while you're there. And if you think that someone else would enjoy what you have just listened to, please do feel free to hit the share button. Thank you again for having us in your ear space. I truly appreciate it, and I hope to catch you on the next one.